Howdy, y'all. Donald just held one of the most chaotic, self-incriminating cabinet meetings we've seen yet, and somehow the fallout is already spinning into everything from national security to basic human rights at home. Questions are mounting, tempers are flaring, and the desperation coming out of the White House is starting to show in ways that should concern every single American. And with huge implications in Tennessee today, the stakes couldn't be clearer. I'm Adam Parkamenko, filling in for Mary Trump. Let's dive in. All right. Hope you all are doing better than Donald in this country. Today, Donald held a 2-hour cabinet meeting, and the whole thing was on camera. Over the past several days, well, maybe not the whole thing, the end of it at least, more and more questions have been raised about a September 2nd military strike on a boat in the Caribbean. The vessel was suspected of smuggling drugs. On Friday, the Washington Post reported that 2 survivors made it through an initial strike. The military then engaged in a second strike, killing the 2 men who are believed to have been dead. Many military scholars have pointed out that if this is true, it would constitute a war crime. Now, reporters asked Donald and his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, about this episode in the meeting's Q&A portion, and they responded by passing the buck. Here's what Donald had to say.
You had said that you didn't know if the second strike on that one boat had happened, but you wouldn't have wanted it. Now that your administration has acknowledged that it happened, do you support that second strike? And Mr. Secretary, I want to clarify something you had said in an interview back in September, I believe on Fox News. You said that you had watched that strike live on television. In real time, did you know that there were survivors after the initial strike?
Well, look, all I know is this. Every boat that you see get blown up, we save 25,000 on average lives, 25,000 lives. They've been sending enough of this horrible fentanyl and other things like cocaine and other things, but fentanyl right now is the leader of the pack, to kill our entire nation, because a little speck on the head of a pin can kill somebody. It's very dangerous stuff. I know so many people where their sons were drug addicts. They had one little sample and they died. They couldn't believe it. As far as the attack is concerned, I still haven't gotten a lot of information because I rely on Pete. But to me, it was an attack. It wasn't 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I didn't know anything about people. I wasn't involved in it. I knew they took out a boat.
They died and they couldn't believe it. Next, Hegseth tried to distance himself from the operation that he was in fact overseeing. Take a look.
As any leader would want, you want to own that responsibility. So I said, I'm going to be the one to make the call after getting all the information and make sure it's the right strike. That was September 2nd. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into that, building that case and understanding that, a lot of people providing information. I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. And it was the right call. We have his back, and the American people are safer because narco-terrorists know you can't bring drugs through the water and eventually on land if necessary to the American people.
He goes, I have to do it at the end. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Drowsy Don has entered the chat. I mean, look at this. The man is literally falling asleep in his own cabinet meeting during the part where he's supposed to pretend he knows what's going on. This wasn't a briefing. It was a nap time at Mar-a-Lago daycare. You've got Hegseth blinking like he's trying to remember his lines. Rubio doing that slow head bob that we've all seen him do with the red eye flight. And Trump's just over there drifting off like he's being read a bedtime story about his poll numbers. This is the crew that keeps screaming they're the tough guys who are going to save America, and they can't even stay awake long enough to answer a question. Forget America first. Their new slogan is America. Just 5 more minutes. Now, on an equally serious note, watch out, Admiral Bradley. The Trump regime is already warming up the underside of your bus. And if you follow these people for even 5 minutes, you know exactly how this goes, if they're not napping, of course. Trump surrounds himself with loyalists right up until the moment he needs someone to blame. And then suddenly, you were the mastermind. You were the problem, and you were supposed to read his mind while he was busy rage posting at 3 a.m., of course. This is the same playbook every single time. Create chaos, deny reality, and when it all collapses, toss the nearest adult in the room overboard, if there is an adult in the room. Now, Admiral Bradley just hasn't realized he's today's designated fall guy. Tomorrow, it might be someone else. The only constant in Trump world is that the bus never runs out of room underneath it. Now, here's what Rep. Jim Himes of Connecticut, ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, had to say today on MS Now.
If you strike a combatant who is in distress, if you deliberately target someone, even if they're a combatant, even if they were doing very, very bad things, and they are not in a position to go after you, that is a war crime. Full stop. Deliberately targeting people, regardless of who they are, who are in distress, particularly on the high seas, is a war crime. Full stop. Secondly, and this is why you're going to hear a lot of nausea out of the Pentagon today, this thing of like, oh, Pete didn't know this and the Admiral did this and he's a great American. In the United States military, Katie, particularly in the United States Navy, there is a centuries-long tradition that when something goes wrong on the ship, it doesn't matter if it was an able-bodied seaman or whoever it was, the captain takes responsibility. In this case, of course, the president is trying to protect the Secretary of Defense. My own opinion is, based on the briefings that I've had, that in that particular strike, the Secretary of Defense had command authority. We'll find that out. We'll get these facts. But make no mistake, it doesn't matter if it was the Admiral or the Secretary of Defense. If that happened in the military, there's a long tradition of the captain taking responsibility. Thirdly, and we don't need to spend a lot more time on this, Katie, this whole thing of trying to say that we can take military action against people who for decades we have dealt with in a law enforcement context, that they are narco-terrorists. There is no such thing as a narco-terrorist. There are very, very bad narcotics people, cartels, etc., but they're desperate to make this look like it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda because that's the very thin line on which their illegal use of the United States military to take these people out resides. So again, people shouldn't lose amidst all of the smoke and mirrors here the very simple fact that war crimes were in all likelihood committed and that the responsibility lies with the leadership.
He's an excellent communicator. Lastly, Donald capped the meeting off with a long, angry, hateful, disgusting, and racist monologue. Here's how our sorry excuse for a president chose to finish an address to the American public.
Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year. Billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
So Donald is back at it, calling Congresswoman Omar garbage and telling Somali Americans to go back to where they came from. 2 hours into a cabinet meeting, and the man still can't resist punching down at immigrants, refugees, and anyone who doesn't fit the picture of what he believes America should look like. Let's be crystal clear. Minnesota's Somali community is America. They work here, raise families here, start businesses here. Many are born here. serve in our military, and contribute more to this country in a single day than Donald Trump has in his entire grifter-filled career. And Congressman Omar, she's a sitting member of Congress. She was elected overwhelmingly by the people of Minnesota. Trump can't stand that a black Muslim immigrant woman has power he'll never understand and courage he's never had. This is who he is. When Trump feels cornered or irrelevant, he lashes out at the people who represent the very diversity and strength of this country. And every time he does it, he tells the world exactly why he should never get anywhere near power again. Now let's take a look at this. While trying to dodge responsibility for breaking international law, Donald's also finding time to attempt to starve people at home. The Associated Press reports that the Trump regime has threatened to withhold SNAP benefits from blue states. They say they will do so starting next week unless those states provide data on the people registered for the aid. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins said that this action is being taken as a means to crack down on fraud. The information being demanded of SNAP recipients includes names and immigration status. Multiple Democratic-led states have already sued to block those mandates. Roughly 42 million people in the United States rely on SNAP to help them buy groceries. So the Trump regime is now threatening to cut off SNAP benefits to blue states unless they hand over the personal information, including immigration status of people who rely on those benefits to feed their families. Let's be clear. This isn't about fraud. It's never been about fraud. It's about power, cruelty, and intimidation. It's about using hunger as a weapon. 42 million Americans rely on SNAP, as we just mentioned. 42 million. That's not a political demographic. That's kids, seniors, working moms, veterans, people with disabilities. And Donald is looking at them and in the eye and saying, give me your data or I'll take your groceries. That's not leadership. That's extortion with a flag pin. And Brooke Rollins, she's out here pretending that this is some noble crusade, like demanding the immigration status of hungry families is some heroic stand for accountability. Give us a break. This is the same tired racist playbook. Target marginalized communities, stoke fear, and hope nobody notices that the real fraud is happening inside the administration and standing in front of you doing it. Thankfully, Democratic governors aren't rolling over. They're suing as they should, because once you let a president like Donald, hate calling him a president, decide who gets to eat based on politics, you don't have a democracy anymore. You have a regime that punishes the people it dislikes and starves the one it fears. Sounds a lot like Russia, right? If they're willing to use food assistance as a political weapon, imagine what they'll do next. This is why voting matters. This is why staying informed matters. And this is why we can't let these people anywhere near the levers of government ever again. Now, let's talk about Tennessee. Today is voting day in Tennessee. A special election is being held for the state's 7th congressional district. This is deep MAGA land. In 2024, Donald won this district, because we don't sit here and claim fraud, by roughly 22 points. But Republican turnout tends to lower in a special election. Now, the Democratic candidate, Afton Ben, has been polling well and generating enthusiasm despite how red the district is. CNN's Dana Bash, who I would normally never highlight for those that know me, but this will be an exception, explained on TikTok why this election is so hotly contested. Let's take a look.
This should not even be close. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, went down for a last-minute campaign rally. The president called in. There have been millions of dollars spent by MAGA-related super PACs in order to try to keep this seat in GOP hands.
Let's deliver a decisive victory tomorrow.
Democrats also see an opening, so they're spending money as well. Now, the obvious question is why? Why is it close? Well, the Democrat, Afton Bain, has been playing up affordability, talking about issues that make her sound like a populist, which is part of the playbook for Democrats, certainly in the special elections and in this election year.
Good evening, Tennessee Democrats!
Here's the thing about special elections. It tends to be just the most motivated voter who actually goes to the polls. And that motivation right now is anger and frustration. Not entirely, but that is the driving force.
So polls close tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. If you're in Tennessee and you're in the 7th, you should get off this show and go vote. If you already voted, thank you. If you're in Tennessee and you're not sure, go to iwillvote.com. Take a look at where you're supposed to vote. CBS News provided an update on where things stood as those in Tennessee started hitting the polls. Let's take a look.
I think voters are feeling that this Washington Republican economic agenda has not delivered, and that we have a Republican trifecta at the state level, we have a Republican trifecta at the federal level, and groceries aren't cheaper, utilities aren't cheaper, rent isn't cheaper.
We're going to win decisively tomorrow when everyone gets out to vote, and that's what we're driving first. This is about America first. As the speaker said, the margins in Congress are so narrow, and this is about the direction we want to move our country.
All right, so let's look at some polling. Emerson College shows Republican Matt Van Epps has a 2% lead. But consider this, 5% of respondents say they are undecided. So it's a dogfight. President Trump knows this. He made a push for the Republican candidate. He cheered him on social media and also called in to a Van Epps rally last night.
I have to say the whole world is watching. This is a big deal because right now we're like 3 votes up on the radical left, and this would be a wonderful victory for us. It'll be really a positive sign.
Being clear about this, anything under 22 is a win for Democrats. I hope we bring it together, but we'll see. We'll see shortly tonight how this plays out. But look, the fact that we're even having this conversation is already a win for Dems and a good sign for democracy. Special elections usually have lower GOP turnout, and when voters actually show up based on real issues, not vibes, not grievance, not cult loyalty, Democrats outperform every time. Afton Ben has been out there meeting people where they are, talking about healthcare, jobs, schools, and the things that politicians in districts like this usually ignore because they assume the outcome is baked in. She didn't accept that. Her campaign didn't accept that. And clearly, a lot of voters aren't accepting that either. No matter what the final numbers are, and the enthusiasm in a plus 22 Trump district tells us something big. The map is shifting. People are tired of the chaos. They're tired of being taken for granted, and they're willing to show up. That alone should scare the hell out of the GOP, and it should fire up every Democrat watching. Now, with that, we have reached kind of quickly today's emotional sport moment. Take a moment to rest, repair from your day with some sea turtles. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Okay, well, that is very fun. And Mary's team, including Lexi, do an incredible job. Same thing to the moderators. That was a lot of fun to watch. Any questions? Any thoughts? Carlos, Coyote 1. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Cindy B, thank you for sending Mary Trump Media a super sticker. Midas Cheryl. Hey, Midas Cheryl. Mary Trump Media membership. Thank you. Hope you are doing well, Dozy Don. I was talking to Kyle earlier, and he was going on about Dozy Don. So thank you very much, Midas Cheryl. Gene Hodgson. Where are the Epstein? And actually, I think was it Ghostly? I saw the moderator also ask the same thing. Where are the Epstein, Trumpstein, Maxwell files? We were promised that they would be released after the vote on the Hill. So who has them and why? The good news is the clock is ticking. I don't know how many days it is, but there are a number of days now in terms of the Massey and Ro Khanna bill that passed, I think, with all the votes in the House but one, and then flew through the Senate and pissed off Johnson. So everything we're seeing, including Venezuela, is one big distraction and wag the dog here. But I do anticipate that we're going to hear more about this in the coming days. And it's up to all of you to make sure that you keep tweeting and posting about it and sharing it, far and wide to make sure that whatever Donald Trump is doing when he is awake or asleep, this follows him. Jana Brenner, he had to sleep after shit posting all night. Yeah. I mean, literally, it's just, it's unbelievable. You have to wonder, like, if he's doing that when the entire world is watching, what is he doing when the doors are closed? You know, they actually like put him horizontal on a cot or, you know, whatever they've got at daycares. Mission RD 100. These press conferences are a joke. I mean, they're awful. I don't even know what that was today, but the fact that like Rubio and others are sitting there saying, you know, this is the only guy in the world that can end this and do this, and pointing at a guy that is literally asleep, is really humiliating for them, but also for our country. I hope Pete Hegseth, I mean, you have hope Pete Hegseth goes down for this. You have to imagine that at some point there will be some justice here. I mean, whether that's the ICC at The Hague in the Netherlands or so forth. It's just, it's unbelievable. It seems like, you know, I said this before the election last year. We were heading into an election where Donald was literally wondering, you know, went to sleep wondering the day before the election whether he was going to be going to prison or the White House, moving to jail or the White House. And that's just crazy. It seems like there is never any justice, you know, whether it's for the victims or for the crimes throughout the world and so forth. So I actually spoke to somebody earlier today who worked with that admiral for years, and they were like, look, even if Pete Hegseth said do this, he shouldn't have done it, which is, it makes you kind of wonder if those 6 members of Congress on the House and Senate side came out because they were hearing that this kind of stuff was going on. If you look at the date of September 2nd and when that video came out and so forth. But in reality, anybody involved that was part of that, including Hegseth, should face the consequences for it. It's just like anybody that's on the Epstein list. And hopefully it'll be a wake-up call to, you know, anybody that laughed at that video or suggested the members of Congress were should be hung. WL 4290. If the grifter in chief is going to attack Venezuela on land, so are they going to use the same tactic? Just ram? I mean, that's what it seems like. The fact that Donald over the weekend came out and said that the airspace over Venezuela is officially shut down. One, the fact that people throughout the world are listening to him and actually going and waiting for true social posts is just, it's insanity. But two, it shows what a madman he is and how much of a madman everyone thinks he is, because he's coming across with the backing of everything that the U.S. is in control of as a guy who's just going to start shooting down random airplanes like Putin. I mean, it's just nuts. But that little, one of the first videos at 3 or 4 seconds where he basically was like, well, we have to, in terms of going on land, whatever plan there is, you know, it's already half pregnant and baked in. Andrea Cohen, what about the drug dealer that was sentenced to 45 years in prison that Trump is pardoning? Yeah, the former president. So I guess he doesn't care about drugs coming into your country. I mean, that's the thing. This former president literally brought more drugs into this country than, you know, maybe anybody else. And the way that they're talking about a boat versus pardoning a guy who, you know, the U.S. government just spent how much money convicting, and how many people lost their lives throughout this country because of that guy. It's just nothing adds up. Nothing makes any sense, but it can't be normalized. Diana Ramsey, thank you for becoming a member for 5 months. The fight is far from over. The garbage pail kids are running amok. Yeah, I agree. The fight is far from over. I'll be very curious to see what happens at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, 7 p.m. Central in Tennessee as the results start to come out. But no matter what, the fact that we're even having this conversation seems to suggest that there's something happening around the country, and I hope there is. Although, if we were to flip that seat in Tennessee, you can only imagine what's going to happen right now. I mean, you've got a New Jersey congressman under indictment, a Democrat, for doing nothing wrong, right? They're going to speed up all sorts of things like that. to try to keep the votes in the House, but they're running out of votes. Marjorie Taylor Greene, effective January 5th, that will be whenever the special election happens, whether it's February, March, that will still be one less vote come January 5th. And there's a number of other members that are allegedly on the Republican side going to come and announce their retirement. Whether they leave early remains to be seen. Diana, thank you. In the middle of nowhere. That sounds nice. Being just outside of DC, gifted Mary Trump Media a membership. Thank you. Brenda Henderson, how can Trump talk how he wants to kill the people of color in America and abroad? Trump is an orange demon. Just saying. It is for a guy that like really wants to protect white people. It is strange how much time he spends trying to not be white. It's just insanity. I mean, sometimes I'm just at a total loss for words, but again, it's going to be critical that we take back the House in 2026. And, whatever happens tonight, there's still lots of elections around the corner. Primaries are a really good thing. And we need to do everything we can to make sure that we have the best candidates throughout the country running and do everything that we can to support them. And hopefully make a dent in the Senate, because that's not helping either. Cy Blur, 11 people on a boat. Were they hiding the drugs in their pockets? I mean, it's just unbelievable. But we'll see what happens. Now, I don't think I mentioned it earlier. I did see that the admiral is supposed to be heading to the Senate to meet with the members of the Senate Intelligence Committee on Thursday. I don't know if any of that is public, but that to me will be interesting to see. But yeah, Cybler, it's sounding like little like Splenda packets or something based on the amount of room in there. Jan Morgan, billionaires don't just accumulate money, they stockpile influence, lawmakers, media platforms, even entire political movements. That's totally true. And I think maybe an hour or two ago, I saw a story about how CNN was like becoming partners with some type of betting company that, is it Don Jr. is a part owner of or a part of. It's like the same 12 people that are involved in everything. All of this while Jared Kushner is over there meeting with Putin. Paul, blue states withhold tax money to federal government. Yeah. I mean, it's like in Virginia too. I mean, some of these, when you have big fights, it's like the localities, most of the money in Virginia comes from Northern Virginia and then goes back down to Richmond. We've seen these fights at the local level. But yeah, I think that we should not unilaterally disarm. Everything should be on the table. We should fight like them, and we should use everything at our disposal, because obviously, there is no playbook that seems to work for Dems. I've said a bunch of times, Republicans don't win elections. Democrats lose them. Same thing with these fights that we're in. We just unilaterally disarm, and we can't be doing that anymore. So we've seen a number of great things. Today, I think it was a few hours ago today, we saw that Pam Bondi announced that the Civil Rights Division was filing a lawsuit against Governor Newsom in California for the recent Prop 50, which is insane when you think about it, right? Because he put that before the people of the state. If anything, they're weaponizing the Civil Rights Division for exactly the wrong terms. They should be filing a lawsuit against Texas. And that would make a lot of sense if the Civil Rights Division got involved in what's going on in Texas, because that was not being put forth before the voters. Only Elysium. All he's done is bring garbage into our country, all that trash in his cabinet. Yeah. And I mean, Donald Trump himself, right, would just be bringing garbage into the White House, as he, many of you have probably seen the Christmas tour this year is less than like 50% of what it normally is. And, one of them is like a giant picture of an attempted assassination of him. It's because there's no East Wing. He bulldozed the East Wing. Hakeem is beholding the PAC money. I think Hakeem's got a number of problems. I think Hakeem was asked today about whether or not he would support impeachment for Secretary Hegseth. And look, if you want to take a step back and say, we're going to look at all the facts, we're going to listen to people, all that kind of stuff. Although, some of the early on facts where the Washington Post reports something and the White House calls it fake news, and then we find out that something is true, kind of says it all. But Hakeem is not, he misses the moment so many different times. And at the very least, he should have said, like, yeah, of course, impeachment is on the table, right? Like, if it wasn't for war crimes, what else would it be for? I don't know. It's disappointing. Hope Democrats find some new leadership. I was glad that he kept everybody together for the shutdown, but that doesn't mean that you stay there. Blue Lady, come on, District 7 in Tennessee. Afton Ben is the only choice for democracy. I agree. Fingers crossed. If anyone is in Tennessee 7 on here, you got to go vote right now. Jamie McGee, Tennessee got hurt by tariffs and Canada hate, bourbon industry. Yeah, and it's interesting. I watched Afton on CNN. I don't really watch CNN much anymore, but like a day or two ago, and she was on with Cassie Hunt, and they were asking her all these questions about, the border and, whether we should decriminalize or criminalize immigrants coming over and all that stuff. And she was just like, I don't really know like what you're asking about, because this is just not what we're talking about in the district. We're talking about food prices. We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about access to healthcare. We're talking about childcare. Like, this is, you can keep asking me this stuff, but it's just not the stuff that we're dealing with here in this district. Bridget, thank you for supporting Mary Trump Media. Thanks to everyone voting for Afton Ben in Tennessee. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Sir, you Prime. I probably get all these wrong. Sorry. I'll remember the next time. How other independents are undecided blows my mind. I know. I look at the daily number of folks that are registering to vote or changing their voter registration, and then in some states you can't even be registered with a party. So, like in Virginia, where I am, they can see what party you might come out and support in a primary and kind of figure out, based on that, like, oh, Adam Parker Manco votes in Democratic primaries, he's a Democrat. But if you don't vote in primaries, there's no party registration. Now, in a lot of these states, though, Pennsylvania, I noticed yesterday, I think it's up 7,000 for Democrats, like one of the first times in a long time that voter registration for Democrats is up. Some other states, even Delaware, I think there was a little bit of a shift from, like, the Democrats went down, but then the number of independents went up. I think there's a lot more people that are just moving over, that are currently registered but are changing their registration to independents throughout the country, because they just don't want to be aligned with, like, they get pissed off. They see the national leaders doing exactly what we just talked about with Hakeem, so forth. But I did see a bunch of new Democrats registered to vote in Pennsylvania, which is exciting. Linda Joyce, Republicans are putting us in the wrong direction. Absolutely agree. We need Democrats. Trump and MAGA are the radicals. I don't even know how it's a choice at this point. I know we all feel the same way about Scott Jennings, but just to hear Scott Jennings, kind of be that ball washer for Donald Trump, like Lindsey Graham has been for years, is really just it's disgusting. Jerry, if Tennessee fucks up this election and keeps the state red, then they deserve what will be imposed upon them. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, you reap what you sow and all that kind of. But at the same time, it sucks because there's so many people out there that, taking a big step back, Donald Trump won the popular vote this past time, right? So America, unfortunately, is getting a lot of what they voted for right now. And I don't know if that is what it's going to take to finally never have to do this again. But it's, as I've said for years and years, the next time someone tells you America is not a racist country, just remind them they're willing to accept, and you could put racist, sexist, all that kind of stuff. Just remind them they're willing to accept treason and sexual assault and everything else from a white president, but not healthcare from a black one, or not the presidency from, a black female or a woman of color. It's just the reality. Progrocker Hegseth. It's called the Department of Defense, not the Department of War. You full-on idiot. Yeah. Also, I saw today they had the Secretary of War sign in front of him with the SS, and I saw Newsom tweeted that out, and I thought it was just him, doing like AI or something. And then I saw on the news they had a giant picture of it, so I think that maybe was real. The whole SS in terms of Secretary of War name tag in front of him. You guys would probably know better than me. I missed that part. Frown Huffs, how can they claim war or anything? U.S. isn't at war. I mean, for a guy, Donald being the guy, boy, child, whatever, saying that, he's the peace president. He wanted the Nobel Peace Prize. He could get us out of, he could stop the war, the Russian war against Ukraine with a phone call. This guy seems to get us into more wars than anyone else. And people die on a daily basis because of him. Here and throughout the world. Think about what just happened in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump says that there's this massive crime problem in Washington, D.C. And, I spent 15 years as a reserve with the D.C. police. The numbers in D.C. are better than they've been in a very long time. But with that said, what happened was he put a bunch of people, the guard in there that should have never been there. They're not trained to be there. They should have been on the ground. And so far, we've already had this young woman from West Virginia who was killed by a guy who was living in Washington State. So where the crime happened in Washington, D.C., but there was somebody from West Virginia and somebody from Washington State. And the person from Washington State, who is a disgusting, terrible human being, only came to Washington, D.C. because Donald Trump took someone from West Virginia and put her as a sitting duck in D.C. So this was not like some local crime that occurred. This was a manufactured crime. A young woman who has lost her life and was 20 years old, a whole life ahead of her, and didn't want to be there, according to her boyfriend. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, the mods are great. Thank you. Is it Zela Joey? XELA Joey, for supporting Mary Trump Media. Best mods in the world right here, and best subscribers. You guys are absolutely fantastic. Susan, great to see you. Do you think Hexet's name plates? Yeah. So first of all, thank you, not just for all you do for Mary Trump Media, but also for financially supporting Mary Trump. It appeared that it's got to be intentional, right? I mean, all of this is, you've got advanced people who literally do the cards, they do the waters, they make sure that the paper is over the water so no dust or anything gets in it. I thought it was just Newsom trolling, but it appears to have been real. Love when Mary has guest hosts. Thank you. That is not me saying that, by the way. The user MC3TP5 at you. My hands are off the keyboard. But thank you for that. Von Krull. Trump is a kind of media savant and good at self-promotion, but he's well past his prime, pursuing enemies, locking in a legacy of destruction and failure. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And he's using the same playbook he's used forever and ever. It's just getting old. It's just so predictable. The fact that like people are still into this show that he puts on, despite the fact that at some point everybody's going to be affected by this. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. Karnak, magnificent. Adam, all caps. I did some business with a small business in Canada. They told me this is killing them. I believe it. It is. It's having ramifications just in every corner of the world. And just imagine, I mean, not just our healthcare premiums going to skyrocket and people won't have access to healthcare. People are already, having to choose and make really disgusting and terrible, dangerous decisions when it comes to healthcare and pregnancies and stuff like that in different states. Now, businesses are affected. Someone sent me a text message the other day where there was like this giant, they went to a movie and they had this giant cost on the receipt, and it was like a living wage cost. And I actually hadn't seen that on a receipt before, but it makes you just sort of wonder for a while. It's like, you want to do everything you can to support any employee having a living wage. We want to see that. But when you see that a company is putting that on there and saying you're paying for the living wage because we're tacking that on and we're not paying out of our own pocket, the greed is just crazy. It's just through the roof. Gene Hodgson sure is replying. I say, I have a business I've been running for 44 years now. Congrats for keeping it alive. Now I have a tariff on sending goods to the United States. That's crazy. And the sad part is half of this stuff goes away, as you all know, right before elections. When will we know who won in Tennessee? I think the polls close at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. So they're open for another hour and 19 minutes. If you know of anyone in line, stay in line. Probably relatively quickly. If you follow Decision Desk on Twitter and elsewhere, they're pretty quick and they're pretty good. I think it'll be, it's one of those things where there's a couple cheat sheets out there, and I think there's like 7 or 8 areas that they're keeping an eye on when the polls close. And based on that you can usually, decipher what's going to happen. And I hate to say it, but Fox News is usually one of the first to get it right. Grocery prices might be okay in Tennessee. I don't know. Tennessee 7th. Democratic candidate talked a lot about how they are not okay. And that was one of the big motivators for people that were coming out. We all need to watch Fox OAN or Newsmax for 5 minutes a month to remember the propaganda they spew and get a clue why some right wing are deceived. Maybe tonight's the night. If you're gonna watch Fox for 5 minutes, do it with the Tennessee results. It's completely dumb for us to trade freely because we share a border. Apart from isolated situations or disputes, we in Canada took it for granted. Trade would always be fairly easy across the border. Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of friends that work for the ATF and other places, and Donald Trump spends so much time attacking, Mexico and other things like that. And there's all sorts of things that happen on the northern border. But how often do you hear him talking about, internet crimes against children or other things like that? All we hear about when it comes to issues like that are just these Republicans that are engulfed in, sexually assaulting children and other things like that. DPD, elections no longer involve politics. It's more like a choice between moral ethics and good versus evil. I think that is well said. Corey Gads, Trump is the only president on the planet who openly spews hate rhetoric on live television, and the world sees it. From Australia, down under. Yeah, that's true. And I don't know if you guys have seen, you probably have, that picture of his new, the nutcase running Border Patrol in that like Nazi jacket that does not look like a jacket that is handed out by the U.S. government or Border Patrol. But that guy is just an absolute nut. I mean, they're all nuts, but they're central casting nuts as well. DBD. Yeah, I think that's a great statement. Mia, a quote by someone. I don't fear artificial intelligence. I fear natural stupidity. Yeah, that's true. I mean, at this point, look, with ChatGPT, you're going to probably get a better, more accurate response than you are from the president of the United States. That should scare everybody. War on the poor of America. That's absolutely what it is. I mean, we talked about the Somali community today. It's just, one thing that I really respected hearing Congressman Omar say a long time ago when she first got elected, and there was the video footage of it, is, she flew into this country as an immigrant and landed in Dulles. And the first time she had flown back into Dulles was as a congresswoman elect. And if that isn't what being part of America is, I don't know what it is. Susan, thank you again. Thank you for guest hosting. Absolutely. Anytime. The community loves hearing your opinions and analysis. Thank you. Lexi is the best. MTM community. They've got the best questions. You're the best. Lexi's the best. And yes, when Lexi and Mary reach out, I am there. Sir Prime, I wanted a Millennium Falcon when I was a kid. I got a little one over here somewhere. Didn't get it. Didn't make me want to oppress the nation. Yeah, exactly. I don't think I got one when I was a kid, but I did get one as an adult. I may have taken that from Cameron, but totally with you there. Ted Veens, that we elected Trump to be our president is exactly what Stalin meant. Yep. It's it's what they all did. Totally. I mean, you got to imagine Putin is sitting there separate from whatever is going on right now with, this war that he's doing in Kushner. Like, holy shit, can you believe what's going on? Like, he has got everything and more that he could have ever wanted. Right now, his big thing is to be part of the G8 again and get out of this war looking like he's got some wins and getting some businesses back into Russia. And how he's going to piece all that together, I have no idea. I don't even think we know exactly how truly what his age is. But this is a long time in the making, and it really is just a sad moment for this experiment that it's still an experiment that is the United States. Heidi Gordon, he still doesn't understand why you can't be violent in order to get a peace prize. I know. I mean, literally, but what do we expect from the guy that can't tell us where he got an MRI, but can tell us it wasn't on his head and falls asleep, in front of the entire national media? It all sort of, he's not on the level, but it all sort of makes sense. Trump sent out 400 messages from Truth Social page last night and was falling asleep in meetings today. Yeah, I mean, they got to put that guy to bed early. And the crazy thing is, right, we've talked about this so many times, everything is projection. The whole Sleepy Joe thing, I mean, this isn't like the first time he's been dozing off. Donald Trump is dozing off weekly now. And, the one where he's sitting there as Dr. Oz was speaking in the White House, and literally the whole right side of Trump's face is the gravity's just pulling it down, as he's just, a minute away from drooling. Hegseth hid in central Syria playing on his PlayStation for his military. Yeah, this guy is not a real, he's not a real guy. I mean, I was talking to a former pretty high ranking official in the military today, and he won't even, he won't even say Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War. They just call him Pete because they don't have any respect for him. Maybe we'll take one or two more, or three more, whatever works for you, Lexi. Thank you guys for being here. Question, Adam, in Canada, we have to pay tariff for some packages. So yeah, so much for small business. It really is. Come on, heck, Seth. So abolish 19th Amendment, women's right to vote. The white women supporting the fact. Yeah, I mean, I cannot for the life of me. But at the end of the day, right, it's like the share goes around. Anybody that supports this regime. But it is very strange to me, the number of white women that have voted for this. Very strange. We need to keep Marco Rubio talking forever to sleep. Yeah, I mean, literally, it was like a bedtime story. I can't get over it, but I don't know if you all saw this, but there was the physician, White House physician to Dick Cheney was on cable quite a bit this weekend. And he basically was like, I don't know what's going on, but they're not honest. They're not being honest. He got his physical. You do the physical. That's it. He's like, he's been back to Walter Reed at least twice. And, this happened and now they're lying about this. And like, I don't know why they're not being honest, but like whatever's going on, there's something going on. And then he was talking about the messaging that came out where they were like, it was a proactive whatever MRI. And he's like, there are no proactive MRIs. Okay. The language they're using is not even real. So I don't think it's good for Don, but they're lying about it. But as Mary's also said, this guy is probably going to outlive all of us, right? He's like literally all he does is eat preservatives. He's literally preserved. Thank you for covering for Mary. Also, your socials rock. Keep me posted. Absolutely. Look, you guys are the best. I'll wrap this up, but thank you for being here. And if you pray for our country. But keep the fight up and keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for all that you do to support Mary. I'll see you guys soon.